Hi everyone. So this is my second day of the 3-day fast, of a 3-day fast that I'm doing. So I just wanted to give my thoughts a little bit on it. Just got home from work and from the office. I'm feeling pretty good. Check my ketones, I'm at 1.2. I've been making coffee throughout the whole day, using that, the instant coffee. So it's been helping a lot because it tastes good and it doesn't have any calories, obviously. I'm not putting any milk or anything like that. I'm not even putting monk fruit, but it's really good. And I probably made a total of 7-8 cups already. It's already halfway through. And so yeah, it's kind of interesting because I remember after the 7-day fast, I was like, I don't really want to do anything else. Like, I don't want to do any more fasting or whatever. And then I ended up doing a 2-day fast. And then now it's like, I wanted to do a 3-day because I guess with fasting, I kind of miss it. The feeling and everything you can get from it. And like I was telling you in the other video, it runs parallel to just about everything you're doing. And I guess after a while, like instead of doing like a 1-day fast or something, or just something that seems more practical, you start to feel the cleansing benefits and you just don't want to stop. It's like, I don't know what it is. Like, obviously you do want to stop at some point because you don't want to get in a deleterious situation. So for example, I would say, for me at least, maybe for most people, perhaps for most people, anything longer than a 3-day fast, especially if you go to 5 to 7, you're basically going to, like, once you come off it, could potentially gain a lot of weight back. I mean, you might lose a lot of weight, but you're going to gain a lot of weight back. You might gain even more weight than you had before. And it's just very rough on your digestive system. You're going to have really bad bowel movements and stuff like that. So I don't recommend that far, but so I'm probably going to do these like 3-day fasts, like for every once a month or something. And I just wanted to give some thoughts because I just started thinking about it. I'm like, for me to lose weight, it's way easier to do this than to do calorie counting. I mean, calorie counting works, but honestly, there's so much torture with it. I'm just starting to realize, like, there's more torture with calorie counting and trying to restrict yourself from eating, like, just a little bit too much or whatever, than there is to just straight up fast, honestly. Because at least with the fast, you got a commitment going on and you just keep going. And so I find it hilarious because it's like, I never would have thought that. I would have thought in the past that fasting would have been way harder because you're going longer time or whatever without eating. So, but actually it's harder to do the calorie restriction because the hormones are just all over the place and stuff like that, and you're never in like a calm situation, whereas with fasting it's like you're actually in a calm, like, assuming you're fat adapted or whatever, you're actually in a calm situation and you can approach things without having to go crazy internally. So yeah, that's the great thing. And I have to go back, but I believe the last time I did a 3-day fast, an actual 3-day fast, not 2-day or whatever, was like a year ago. And like a little over a year ago, and when I did that, it actually felt hard. It actually felt harder for me. And so maybe it's just me that I feel this way. But honestly, at this point, calorie restriction is harder than fasting for me. And it's kind of funny, but 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 I remember when I did that, well, because I'm only on the second day. I mean, when I recorded that video, there was a video of me recording me doing the end of a 3-day fast and how I felt like it was cleansing my liver and all that stuff. But I could still speak to some extent, even though it's been 48 hours, a little over 48 hours, probably 50 now. Again, I haven't reached the 72, which is what it is, 72 hours. But I can still speak a little bit about like the experience. So, yeah, I would say I still feel extremely calm, and the fact that I've committed not to eating has allowed me to like just say screw food, and my ketones are just gradually going up. So I started obviously on Sunday night at point 0.1, but now I'm at 1.1.2. I'm probably a little higher now, but because I took it about 2 hours ago. But yeah, time feels like it goes by really fast, at least for me when I'm fasting, like in the beginning. And it's because like you're kind of like in this state where you feel like you're half asleep or something, and it's a weird feeling. And I mean, it's weird because when I first lost my weight, the weight, my first like 20, 30 pounds, I was doing caloric restriction and going out and doing a lot of exercise. Like I could even tell you right now, I haven't done any exercise at all since Sunday. No exercise, period. Have I lost weight? I don't know. I'm actually not tracking my weight. I should be, but, well, kind of. I'm not, I don't want to measure myself right now, but tomorrow I'm going to do my first official weigh-in for about like the last 2 weeks. And then I'm probably going to record it too. I probably haven't been as low as I was when I did the 7-day fast at the end of it, like 151.8. That was my absolute lowest, but still probably pretty low. And when I went back to the DEXA scan place, they said a little bit later, obviously I was down the body fat percentage, and they said I went up in my muscle. So scale's kind of deceiving, but yeah, doing the caloric restriction and stuff like that, where sometimes I'll do 2,100 calories and stuff like that. That's been very hard for me. I honestly, it's been really hard for me coming off of the fasting approach, in the last 2 months or so, in which I was going from, 18% body fat down to 12% body fat, right? So that's been actually pretty hard for me. And just because it's not really working so well. I feel like the fasting approach, if you're going to do the fasting approach, you got to stick with the fasting approach. But another way of looking at it is that you've crashed your metabolism. That's another way of looking at it, which I think is somewhat false, because if that were actually true, then I'd be gaining all this weight back, even if I, with all those 2,100 calories or whatever. I think the challenge is more in terms of figuring out what your true basal metabolic rate is. That's one thing. 2 is figuring out being able to catch up with it, because it's always changing. And then 3 is kind of like related to that is just how far you need to go with calories at any given moment, because you can't just use your hormones as hunger hormones, like whether or not you have satiety to determine that. But we all know, it's clear that when you do fasting, you're definitely getting there. I mean, if you set your calories pretty low, you're also getting there too. So, I mean, I was doing a combination of the two, the 1,200 calories, which now probably went up to, I don't know, 1,500 on average, with those fasts that I was doing before, the 2-day fast and stuff like that. So, and remember, it was just a handful of days in the last 3 weeks or so that I went up to 2,100, and then also just a handful of days that I went up to 1,900 in a day. And obviously I've been working out too. Obviously I was doing workouts. I mean, in the last 2 days I haven't, but I'm just saying that when you think about the calorie restriction and stuff like that, I should have been losing weight, should have been losing some fat, but it was clear, like, actually I did do a weigh-in like about 5 days ago, but I didn't I jumped on the rough scale. I have like this more precise one, and it showed that I was like 155 or something, which isn't that bad. I mean, Um, so you would think that that would go down to like 140 something if I was truly losing weight. Um, but it looks like I'm netting. Oh well, maybe I'm gaining muscle, but it looks like I'm, which I kind of doubt because it doesn't look like it. But I'm kind of netting, basically zero. In my estimation, I'm netting zero, a net gain of zero. So so basically, like, fasting is pretty much the approach because, like, if I try to do caloric restriction, either I'm just in a slight deficit, which I don't really. Really hard to say actually. Either that or I'm just barely netting zero, where it's not really it's not really working too well. But when you're doing fasting, it just brings it down, So obviously, I don't think I'm going to get down below 151.8 because that was at the end of the 8-day fast or 7-day fast, and that was significantly low. Like, there's always like this kind of like variation when you do those long-term fasts. But I'll probably get, I don't know, 153, and also I gain muscle, so yeah, probably 153 at the end of this, by tomorrow or whatever. Which I don't really care too much about. Again, like I'm telling you, it's not really as parallel with my goals as I wanted it to be. I mean, it would be great if I'm losing, but getting below where I'm at right now is fucking crazy. It's actually it's non-linear. So it's non-linear in either direction. Well, more so in the direction of it not you having to push forward to get towards 10%. I mean, to get down to 10%. I mean, I was looking at some guy's stats and he did some crazy stuff. Like right now I have 18.5 pounds of fat. That's what it shows on my DEXA, right? And this other guy it showed that he did some crazy stuff in like working out and stuff like that. He's like an actual bodybuilder. He went to 6 or 7% body fat, and now he's only got 12 pounds of fat. And when I saw that, I was like, dude, I'm only 6 pounds away. I'm not saying that I'm a bodybuilder, but it's crazy to think about because that 6 pounds could actually could require a large push. But again, I hate to say it, but like, even though I'm not at 10% yet, I'm kind of in a maintenance mode in a way, because like I've said, right, it doesn't really, it's not like I said, this getting that lean is not 100% parallel with everything else that I want to do. So it's like, in a way, I'm maintaining, but I'm also doing what in theory you would do to cut. And I mean, fasting doesn't necessarily have to involve cutting, but it normally does, So, but again, I'm not really doing fasting so much for the cut, although I would appreciate if it would lead to that, Obviously, logically it does, but then you end up possibly gaining weight back and stuff. So anyway, and then it's also good for visceral fat loss, no matter how many times you do it. So there's an argument there that you're losing body fat from that point of view. But yeah, like I'm looking at my body, I'm like, oh man, my abs are not showing as much or whatever. But it's not really about that, and it was never about that. It was about like, it was about getting lean, and even if your abs aren't showing, it's just about staying lean. Getting lean and then staying lean, and then having a peaceful outlook on life. And you don't have to be all muscular and shit. You just have to be lean. I mean, being lean doesn't necessarily mean you have these protruding abs or whatever. So, I mean, I feel lean, and I still feel mentally clear about what I'm doing. He didn't give me a report yet, like in the last 2 weeks, of how I'm doing with my trusses, but I'm sure I'm doing well. And yeah, people are happier with how I'm doing at work. So, speaking of which, there was this really difficult thing that one of the customers reached out to me about, and today, and I don't know what it was, but the answer just came to me. It was like right, one of those things that felt like it was right in front of your face, like it's just right there, it's staring at you, the answer. And so when I looked back at what I wrote, I was like, holy shit, I thought to myself, wow, this is amazing. How am I coming out these words so easily? And because that would normally be something that I would have to like ask 5, 6, 7 people before I know what to say or whatever. It only took me about an hour to 1 to 2 hours to come with the answer. And it's weird because I actually used to be confused about this thing. And basically, I can explain. And I never really got my answer until then, because I was like, all my experience and stuff like that suddenly culminated, and I was like, oh, now I know how to look at this. So basically, the idea is that if you have, I know it may not make sense to you, if you have a girder truss and it's like failing and bearing, and you want to use like a scab to repair it, you can certainly do so. The only thing though is that you basically, like, the answer came to me, I'm like, you're not spreading out the load by putting on another scab, but you are helping it in the sense of, like, if you put a scab there, you're basically helping it in the sense that you're spreading the bearing is not going to be solved. But if you were to have a bigger member, obviously it would increase the bearing area, and so you would have less bearing stress. But most importantly, you can solve this problem based off of, how do I say this? By putting on a jack scab. If you put on a jack scab, you can then spread out the bearing area, and but then how do I say this? The bottom cord part would have to take that load, you know what I mean? So yeah, so I was just like explaining to him how that worked, because you would have to, like, I think he was a little confused, so like, obviously he was confused, but the way that I was confused before was, I was like, something seems contradictory to me. Like, how do you have a scab there and then that spreads out the load? But then I suddenly realized, like, and how does that solve for the bearing? Well, like I was telling you, you can have that scab there and then it would solve for the bearing. If you have that jack scab, it then spreads it out properly. So whereas before I kind of didn't really know how to answer the question, like, okay, well, a scab is a scab. That's how I looked at it. But if you have a jack scab, it spreads out the load as if the whole truss is there. And so I was just like, I don't know why I suddenly came up, because this is something I was confused by like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, how do I ask this question like to my manager without him thinking that I'm repeating myself? Like, I couldn't really think of how to ask, and whenever I would ask, it'd be like this whole obvious thing, like, isn't it obvious, blah blah blah, and he couldn't break it down. I couldn't break it down into fundamental questions. So it was kind of interesting that I suddenly was able to come up with my answer, and I just explained it to him like, holy crap, like, now I know how to answer this question. And I would have been confused 2-3 years ago, even a year ago. But yeah, with all my experience and all the ketones and stuff, I'm like, I know the answer, So I'm glad I was able to explain that to him. So now I feel like I can answer any trust questions or whatever. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a comment. Take care.